21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
My purpose is to select and develop the right leaders so that everyone's get advantage. And that means as an individual, if you report to that leader, as the leader, him or herself, because they're going to be happy in that certain or thrive in a certain environment. For the organization, of course, because the right leaders will generate the financial benefits, but also for society, because I do think and I strongly believe that companies also have a responsibility towards society. So that's a bit my purpose. By selecting and developing the right leaders and leadership teams, you have benefits for all stakeholders. So that's a bit the goal what I'm doing. And the issue, the why, and now I'm talking about a big corporation as an example, but that's similar to a small startup or scale up, whatever, is that by selecting the right leaders, you get financial benefits. Because if you select the wrong leader, you're in trouble. And I always give the example of Boeing. Boeing selected a new CEO years ago. And they're still suffering from that decision. Because I'm not sure if you're following the financials of Boeing, but they had, even in 2024, I think they had 21 billion loss because they selected for the first time a non-engineer coming external who didn't embrace the culture of quality, the culture of safety. The guy came in, took a bit like short-term cost-cutting, and therefore we lost quality, lost safety. There were even 2 big accidents. People even died. I'm not saying that's the fault of the CEO, but he changed the culture and they were losing that quality excellence focus. And of course, if you're an airline and you want to buy an aircraft, I mean, you want to be sure that it's safe, right? And if the market doesn't believe in you anymore, losing that trust, then business is falling down. And that's what you've seen in the loss in revenue, in profit, in reputation. So they took a big hit in selecting the wrong one. Yeah. So that's why it's very important. That's the issue. And the issue is also that it's still a flip of a coin. I was a basketball player myself. I played in like semi-professional at the time in the Belgian competition. I played for the Belgian national team. And what always like struck me is the team dynamics, but also the importance of the coach. Like we won championships with maybe not the strongest individual player, but the strongest team ever. Yeah, with who challenged each other, who went through the fire for each other. And I had very strong coaches and very bad coaches as well. So that always triggered like, what is it that makes a good coach? Yeah, and the influence on that coach on the team. And that's exactly what I'm still doing. I'm trying to understand what makes a good coach, what makes a good leader, and how can he or she then form that team dynamic, that winning spirit. So I do see a lot of parallels between my past long time ago in the meantime and what I'm doing right now. But I think that triggered my interest for what I'm doing right now. So we talked about more the corporate world with the Boeing example, but of course, if you go to the more entrepreneurial spirit of it, especially if you have a co-founder situation, you can imagine that, and normally that you have egos within that co-founder situation, and that's like, who are we gonna select as a CEO? Yeah, first decision, which is a very difficult decision. Do you have complementary skills in the team? Is everyone aligned and thinking, do we have the same common objective or not? Are we aligned on that common objective? And you need to make that very explicit, because if you say we want to be, I don't know, the best customer oriented company, maybe you understand something totally different about customer satisfaction than I do. Maybe you think it should be all AI, digital. Maybe I think you should be more like high touch based and service minded. So all that alignment within a team is super important. And most of the time it creates a lot of misunderstanding in having that common ground, because everyone thinks, yeah, we all understand the same. We want to be the top customer oriented firm in X service. Why you ask them differently individually, they have totally different. So the role of the leader is to make sure that they're all aligned, they're all happy, all in the same direction. So I think that's also very important, to have that team dynamics, common ground, trust in each other, ability to challenge each other as well, to make, again, referring to basketball or sports, challenge each other to become better, healthy competition, to elevate everyone in the team to a higher level. If we look at, for example, CEOs, C-suite level selection of leaders, it's a flip of a coin. Yeah. So they select, and you can see, and there's research about it, 1 out of 2 CEOs leave the company within 18 months. And the whole selection, because it's a bit mind-blowing sometimes. So I worked for PwC. A young graduates finishing university, they sometimes have to go to like 2 days of interviews, like reasoning tests, simulation exercise, group exercise. They're like scrutinized. And sometimes, and it's a bit the extreme on then, and you have all the middle ways, sometimes just the CEO has an interview with the board. That's it. Yeah. And they have a good experience, so we take them on board. While they didn't do the analysis of what is really needed now in this phase of our organization. Again, going to entrepreneurial, typically you have the founder, but then you become more bigger, and you might need a different kind of CEO, right? So that the whole analysis of what is needed is not done. Yeah, is not done correctly, or is the CEO decide on her or on that? I think I need a copy of myself, and that's also a lot of thinking. But what is needed, and that can be a strategic, different direction you want to go. That needs a hard conversation between the if it's a co-founders entrepreneurial, then you need to have a conversation with the co-founder. So what's the success profile of our CEO or new CEO or new CFO, whatever high level leadership. So that's a starting point, having that difficult discussion, because what is the profile we need to bring us the next couple of years successful in the next phase of our entrepreneurial endeavor. And then if you have clarity on that, then you can, of course, assess the right leaders and the right candidates and understand what good looks like and what bad looks like. selecting the right leadership is beneficial for all stakeholders. It's beneficial for the leader themselves, because then they know, would they fit that company? Would they thrive in that company? Because every context is different. It's not because you thrive in one company that in the new company you will thrive as well. So that the context, you need to understand the context as well. So it's beneficial for the leader. If the leaders is thriving, and the best way to have engagement is being successful. Yeah, going back to basketball, if you win every game, that the engagement gets higher. So having the right leadership in place will have an effect on the engagement of the direct reports, the teams, etc. So the engagement is also very important. And if you have a thriving team, you have a thriving organization, and most of the time it should also then benefit the society. So engagement is a super important indicator, and also a way to measure success of leadership. Not the only factor, but it's a way to measure successful leadership. How we make sure you select or developing the right leaders is a holistic approach, where you have analysis, and post-development. What I mean by that is pre-analysis, what you just talked about. You need to understand, what does good look like? What is a success profile of a leader? And that needs discussion. Yeah, and you almost have to go back to your strategy. Is our strategy still relevant? Do we need to change our strategy or vision or mission statement, whatever? Yeah, it needs a discussion that everyone in the board agrees, this is the person we need. Once we have clarity on that, we can start on doing the profiling assessment of the leader. Yeah, and then if we have that, we know, for example, I'm just saying something. We need a new leader, need to be super strategic. Yeah. Okay. So how are we going to analyze or know that this leader is strategic? Okay. We can use psychometrics. We can use a reasoning test to see how abstract thinking is that person, does it see patterns, etc. That part. We can do a business case to see how strategic that person is. So we think about how can we assess strategy in that person. So we typically have a list of behavioral competencies and maybe also technical competencies that we're going to assess. If we have clarity on then the methodology, how we're going to assess that, we do the assessment as such. And then if we then select the right leader, it doesn't stop. It's extremely critical that there is a follow-up, because typically if you start as a new leader, there's a learning, right? There's not only a learning on an individual level, so you need a bit of coaching, follow-up, good onboarding, so you set up the leader for success. But there's also change in team dynamics. Typically, when a new CEO, CFO, whatever C-suite comes in, the dynamics of the team change. So also that part needs to be managed consciously. And that's something what doesn't always happen. They let the team dynamics become natural, while you can shape that team dynamics. You can do an effort. So you really need to see that assessment not as a standalone, but as a whole holistic process. I think that's the key for success. And then if you can, because of that process, increase your chances, flip of a coin, 50% to even 60, even if it's never going to be perfect, right? It's personality, it's too complex to, it's not mathematics, but if you can move from 50 to 70%, it's a huge difference, right? And you can be wrong still, but it's a huge difference if you move that, and it's going to impact big time on your bottom line. And again, if you select a leader, you have to take into account the culture, the company culture, yeah? And have a good view, what is our culture? So make that explicit, discuss it, And like I said before, Boeing was, or maybe still is, I don't know, a culture of quality, excellence, detail, engineering, like safety. That's the culture. If you're gonna change that culture, there are risks. Yeah, there's a reputational risk. So a person needs to fit into that culture. Yeah, it cannot be the overly risk take. I don't say it cannot take risk, but it cannot be overly risky, because quality goes first, safety goes always first. That's important. Now, sometimes the culture needs to be changed. And that's part of that pre-analysis phase. Like, listen, this is our culture. Yeah. The culture has, and for example, in an entrepreneurial spirit, we took risk, we're not super compliance, we go with the flow, we're agile, but we come in a phase where we have to scale up. So we need a bit more structure, a bit more processing in place. So you also want to gradually change that, because culture cannot like 180 degrees, that's difficult, but keep the elements that work and change the small things that needs to be changed. So also there, when selecting a leader, you know that, okay, this person needs to, like in a startup, which is a bit flexible, craziness, madness, towards more structured. So you need to get that person have the balance to change slowly the structure to go on to a scale-up level. So culture extremely important to take into account in the pre-analysis phase, but also to take into account again in the post-development phase. So you shape that culture, and you make it like you want, because it's a difficult exercise. It's not done in a week. It takes months, years to get where you. So one of the key terms that comes up in my mind is the co-creation with the client, because the client knows best their own environment. So you have to use that, tap into that knowledge, and then my company then come in with the whole behavioral side, psychology side of our knowledge, or the benchmark that we have built over the years in assessing hundreds of leaders all over the globe. So you have that benchmark in your head. And that's the strength, the co-creation of discussing and customizing every single time again how we're going to go about it, but using maybe the same methodology or some standards that we know that works. But there's always this co-creation effect, because assessing C-level leaders, one of my colleagues ever said, it's like driving Formula One. You have to be super focused. If you come out of that Formula One car, you're tired. Yeah, you listen carefully, you challenged with the right questions, you create that relationship, you try to understand that person. So it's like driving a Formula One. And experience helps. Yeah? Like I said, you need to build up that benchmark. You've seen, assessed, interviewed so many leaders all over the world. So you have that experience, that's very important. And then combined with experience from the client, from a business perspective. And that combination is what works really, really well. I've been through a leadership journey myself, so I know how difficult it is. And as you start with a small team, you grow your team, you become manager, then you become leader of a department. So I led big consultancy teams within the Big Four, and now within the Mercer. So you know how hard it is, yeah. And also that helps in understanding if you talk to these leaders. You're never perfect as a leader. So you have to keep that in mind, and then the growth mindset becomes really important in that journey, and that of course helps you as a leadership assessor as well. That leadership experience, I think that's also very important to have, to better understand, empathize with the candidates you're assessing. There are two elements that are important for me if I do want to good for society. Yeah, I think that's an important one. And to do good for society, I also need to take care of myself, because I feel when I'm overwhelmed, stressed out, I'm not gonna make the right decisions. I'm less tolerant. I'm not nice to people. So I do take care of myself, and I try to be, like, again, sports corporate athlete, like I need to peak when I need to peak, but I need to take care of myself. I'm doing meditation, I'm doing sports, I have a social environment that I as a support structure that is as important for me to perform in my job. Research shows, and with Mercer we did research with the World Economic Forum, that 7 out of 10 CEOs are overwhelmed. And you can imagine why they're overwhelmed, right? You have AI coming, is very disruptive. You don't know what's going to happen, really, so there's uncertainty. You have geopolitical crises, you don't know what's going to happen. So there's a lot of uncertainty among CEOs, and they are exhausted, they're overwhelmed. So I think that health, corporate athleticism, whatever you want to call it, mental health, well-being is even becoming increasingly important for CEOs. So that's one thing. I think a second thing, although they need to be digital aware, I believe so, but it's exactly the behavioral skills that become more important, is building relationships, creativity, all the things that AI cannot do becomes more and more important. How do you influence people? How do you create energy? How do you let people, organization thrive? All that is becoming more important. So that's on the, let's say, how I see the evolution of the importance of mental, physical health and well-being, especially for CEOs. I see a change to deal with that complexity, to deal with uncertainty, to deal with ambiguity. There is still a new leadership paradigm that I see, and that's paradoxical mindset. And what I mean by that is, as a leader, embracing polarities. And there are a lot of polarities: strategy, execution, people, task, short-term, long-term. So how do you balance this polarities? And for me, and I'm not saying that's not a new concept, is embracing full-on strategy, full-on execution, but quickly navigate between two. Or to give an example, full-on embracing AI, full-on embracing digital, but also full-on embracing humanity. Because if you only look at humanistically people-oriented, you're going to be out of business if you don't become digital. Yeah? If you only become digital without embracing humanity, look at social media, it has big consequences for society and humanity. So you do have to embrace both ends on the extreme to deal successfully with the new, uncertain, polarized, complex world. So that's why I see a new leadership paradigm coming up with a strong humanistic point of view, more humanity. On a personal level, how I see the business, I'm now at Mercer Talent Enterprise, so we want to become the biggest assessment business in the world within a couple of years. So that's a great ambition. So I feel that I'm in the right place to do so. We have great people here, so I'm happy to be part of that journey, and that keeps me going and keeps me strong. So if you want to find out more, please contact me on LinkedIn. Happy to start a conversation.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.